wonderful day. It's hard for me to realize there is only one nation in the world that has a national holiday as Thanksgiving. We are the only nation that has a Thanksgiving day of national Thanksgiving. That is the United States. The subject of today's sermon is the subject. It's not an expository, just a subject. I wanted to get that. One of the most grateful moments in American history was the 5th day of April in 1821, at the conclusion of a very hard winter in January, February of that year. One half of all the pilgrims who had come over on the Mayflower had died. Half of them had died. So when they celebrated, there they were. When the ship left, there wasn't one of them asked to be on that ship. It sailed out. They were buried, 51 of them, half of them, was buried in overlooking Cold Harbor, on Plymouth Harbor. And they were buried there at Coles Field, and they were, they leveled the ground out in a cornfield. They leveled the ground out because they didn't want the Indians to see how bad they were, how weak they were. So on the 5th day of April in that spring, after a very harsh and terrible winter, there was 21 men and 6 lads that was old enough to work. And there in that field, there's a handful of women and children started at the shores. They watched the Mayflower on which they had come leave land. And never, not one of them got on that ship. All of them, 51 of them died. Now, but one of the pilgrimage, not one of those pilgrims back on the ship, not one of them returned to the homeland. As they stayed there in the wilderness and stood and watched that ship go from the horizon of the sea, disappear. They were devout people, those pilgrims, that when they came to shore of the New World, they came to establish a new society, order in Christ's name. And in that blessed name, they are to establish the basic of evangelizing the world. They were evangelizing the world. How can a small church evangelize the world? Through the cooperative program. That's the only way it does. We can't send missionaries. We need enough of us to send a missionary. But we can throughout the association. Churches can get together and they can send a missionary. We don't have to be big and large. We can be small and still be part of that great commission. Just like we were down there. Did you see the governor of North Carolina? He was talking about the devastation that took place down there. And he said, I never seen so many yellow shirts. Yellow shirt is a symbol of the Pansy Baptist Church. We were there. They carried with them the American Bible and the King James Version when they come over here. This book right here, King James Version. This was the center of their home. They built their homes upon this. They built their churches, and their churches were built upon this. as they preached the word. And then their school was built upon this. Their textbooks was their textbooks at school. And you want to know how far we got away from it today? Look, all you got to do is look. You can't do nothing today in the schools. That fall, in 1621, William Bradford was elected governor of that little colony and proclaimed thanksgiving and gratitude to God for the harvest had come. To us, every very small, but them so significant. And 3 days in November, they celebrated the Thanksgiving. They celebrated. Now, that became 3 days in November. Now, William Bradford, governor, if you look in the book of Leviticus, you will see the only offering Thanksgiving is the peace offering. The peace offering is a Thanksgiving offering. We refer to it as Thanksgiving. So, he started if you read through the Pentateuch, first 5 books of the Bible, you will see that they had a Thanksgiving week called the Feast of the Tabernacle. They stood on the hills and built booths to celebrate the Thanksgiving that God had given them, promise that God had given them as they left and went out of Egypt's slavery. Now, in the New Testament, the apostle no less upon the privilege of thanking God. For example, in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, the apostle writes, "In everything give thanks to God." That is a beautiful admonition. It's hard to do, to be thankful for everything. But God said for us to be thankful. Let our requests be made known unto God. Very hard to do. A beautiful, right before the Revolutionary War, they made a declaration. And in 1789, the United States proclaimed a national day of Thanksgiving. And it was the first president, George Washington. Now, could you think you could get together with them up there in Washington and they could have a day of Thanksgiving? No, not at all. After the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln made it a national holiday. Abraham Lincoln made it a national holiday. Let's live for all the future days to come. We will give God thanks for the nation. A nation that one of the diplomats came back. I've traveled quite a bit lately, the last few years. And one thing I was glad to do is come back to America. I was glad. It tickled me to death to come back. Anybody's been on a ship or anything, been out to sea, I say come back. No wonder they want to come. Nobody had been there and seen what they're living in, the way they live. You'd want to come to the United States too. We thank God we have a church that we can have the blessings that He has given us. Evangelizing all the nations and the families of the earth. What a noble commitment on the part of a handful of Christian people. But God has never conquered by excellent or superior number. He has always done it by people that were faithful to Him, that was committed to Him, gave Him all. All of these institution that we enjoyed. All your colleges, your big universities, was established by the pioneers as they crossed the Allegheny Mountains, come over here to Kentucky and to their. Remember, all your schools, big schools, was built by Christians, men and women. They didn't establish them they done Christian men and women done it. Even half the world today is communist. And, we have a church that we can be thankful for. We have a nation that we can be thankful for. God help us be the people that we should be always. And God bless each and every one of you.